Hi again, everyone. This is Bob Burg with another episode of Go Giver Influencers Facebook Live. Today's episode is Influential Humility. And I find humility to be an interesting topic, and here's why. I believe that at least in Western culture, there's sort of a misnomer when it comes to humility. If you were to say to someone, hey, the most humble person in the world is going to be knocking on your door in just a few moments, who would you expect to see, or what would you expect to see when you open the door? Would it be someone who is meek and shy and bashful and was looking down at their shoes and couldn't get a word out? See, I think that's what a lot of people think of humility as being. And I don't think that's what humility is. Humility, I think, means that we have taken an honest assessment of ourselves. I don't think that humility says we're not great and we don't have value. I think humility says we bring lots of value to the world, but we know where that humility comes from, or we know where that value, comes from. We know that, and this is, you could say whether it comes from nature or whether our value comes from God, and whether the gifts we receive come from the universe or from the DNA of our parents or what have you. I think what it means is we look at life from a perspective that says, yeah, we bring lots of value to the world, but let's count our blessings while we're doing it. It means that rather than taking pride in our accomplishments, we take pleasure in our accomplishments. So let's say someone's a great athlete and they work hard and they can say, well, no, I take pride in I'm a great athlete and I work hard and I've earned everything I've gotten. And I'd say all that's true, by the way. You are a great athlete, you've worked very hard, and you have earned everything you've had. You did make that happen. But we also say that instead of taking pride in that, which means it's all about you and you alone, let's take pleasure in the fact that first you were, born in a place that offers opportunity to be able to take advantage of those gifts. Okay. It also means that you inherited some of these traits and abilities from your parents who inherited from theirs and theirs and theirs and theirs. It means that you may have had coaches along the way that helped you. It means you had other teammates who threw the block for you and at certain, what have you. And this is whether you're a scholar, whether you're a great business person, indeed you did the work, and you should take great pleasure in what you've accomplished. When you take pleasure, you feel good about it too. But pride means, you know what? I'm it. Right. And, what is it that they say about what happens before the fall? And I think pride got in there somewhere. So I loved what C.S. Lewis used to say about humility. Humility doesn't mean you think less of yourself. It simply means you think of yourself less. And so, somebody once said to me, well, Bob, you're saying don't take pride in your accomplishments, take pleasure in your accomplishments. But what about when your son or daughter does something and you want to say you're proud of them? Are you saying not to say you're proud of them? Well, first of all, I've never been a parent, so I'm not in any way qualified to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do. But even if I was, I suspect what I'd say is, no, by all means, you're proud of them, and be proud of them and let them know how proud of them you are. I often say to people who have done something, have accomplished something, I say, I'm proud of you and happy for you. And so let's not let political correctness and having to be exact, kind of keep us in the way of, but I think when we're proud of others, that's fine. I think when we're proud of ourselves, again, there's nothing inherently bad about it, but let's focus on pleasure, take pleasure in our accomplishments rather than pride, just so we kind of know that it ain't all about us, and that kind of keeps us grounded a little bit more. Hey, I want to introduce someone to you who you're going to love. I love this guy. I've known him now for years. I consider him a great friend and a mentor, although we've only met once in person. Although I hope that changes. But his name is Dan Rockwell. And Dan happens to be one of the most read leadership bloggers on the planet. writing under the name Leadership Freak, as he likes to say, he is freakishly interested in leadership. He started writing the blog in January of 2010. Since then, the Leadership Freak blog has been recognized as the number one most socially shared leadership blog. And he made Inc.com's list of the top 50 leadership and management experts. Today, over 400,000 people subscribe to the Leadership Freak social media channels, and his blog is read in virtually every country in the world. As I like to say, it's read in every civilized country and some countries that aren't so civilized. You can subscribe to his blog at leadershipfreak.blog. On Twitter, he's simply at Leadership Freak. And on Facebook, he has the gathering place known as the Leadership Coffee Shop. You can find that at facebook.com/Leadership Freak. And I know Shannon well enough to know that those are probably either already up there or they will be several times during this broadcast. So make sure you check the discussion window. He also has a coaching program where he both coaches coaches and trains coaches. And this guy has so much wisdom in this regard. If you're a coach, you really want to know more about that. Hi, Dan. Welcome.
Hello, Bob. Great to see you. And I got to tell you, after that introduction, I'm really feeling proud of myself.
And I take pleasure in the fact that you are. Hey, you're great. Last month in your Leadership Freak blog, which I read, as you know, I read every morning, you posted an article titled "Servant Leadership Distilled and Simplified." So I was very excited to read that, and it kind of surprised me in that the laser focus was on the concept of humility. So I gave a very brief thought on humility a few moments ago. Was I on track with that, or was I kind of off base? And you can tell me.
Right. I think you were fantastic on that. I love the idea of taking pleasure. I love the idea of gratitude. When you think about humility, I think humility and gratitude go together. Like, I'm not the source. I'm not the only one. Yes, I'm delivering value. Yes, I have something to offer. Yes, I belong here. On the other hand, I'm not the only one, and the quarterback has blockers, right, and all of that kind of stuff. So I loved how you approached this. I got a lot out of it. I thought it was great.
Oh, thank you. I want to look at a few more people who have joined us so we can say hello to them. And of course, any questions you have, please just put them in the comment box in the discussion box. I call it something different every time. I always forget what I've called it. Veronica Matthews, I think I acknowledged you earlier. Hello. Maria Chin joined. Hello, Maria. She sends a heart like she always does. Anand Shetty from Mumbai, he joins us. He's great. Nathan Lutka joined. Nathan's a great story because I remember Nathan, he came to one of our events we used to hold years ago in Orlando. He was still in university in Virginia, and you knew right then he was going to be this phenom, and he's built a humongous business. And he has a great story behind him. So great to have Nathan with us. Let's see. Brennan Borgstad from Iowa City. Hello, and Jeff West. The salesperson is the sales professional is with us. Hi, Jeff. So back to the title of your article. You distilled servant leadership and basically said it's all about humility. So I have a question for you. Would it be accurate to say that a truly effective leader, let's say, servant leader, must have humility to be that effective as a leader? But just because one is humble doesn't mean they're a leader.
Well, I'd go with that, Bob. I think that's important. I like the language of servant leader. You don't need to be humble to have a position of leadership. You don't need to be humble to even be successful in business or to be successful in leadership, in the sense of, you have people all moving in the same direction. I talked with, I think it was the CEO of Citibank. Don't quote me on that one, but he said this really wonderful thing. And that is, you can be a success without humility, but you won't enjoy it as much.
Ooh.
Don't you like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, yes, I think it's at the heart. I think everything good in leadership starts with humility. We head down the wrong path when arrogance takes over, when, we're pride is the governing force, but, openness, receiving, all kinds of things are the good things of leadership happen in connection with humility, I think.
So one doesn't necessarily, let's say, need to be religious to be humble, or maybe even to believe in something bigger than themselves to be humble. But I'd imagine that it kind of helps. And here's why I say this. If you believe there's something bigger than yourself, and again, that everyone's beliefs are welcome. So that could be God, it could be nature, it could be, again, your parents' DNA, it could be a cause you believe in. It could be a cause that's bigger than yourself, right? So in other words, something bigger than yourself, it's a lot easier to be humble because by the very nature of the thing, you're not the issue. On the other hand, it's difficult, let's say, to be humble before God when you think you are God. Okay, so you come from a pastoral background. I was going to say you're a former pastor, but I think like a Marine, you're never a former pastor, right? You're always a pastor, just like you're always a Marine. So how do you see humility as being within the context of something bigger? Do you need that in your life to be humble? Can you be humble without it?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Bob. And I think it helps. Although and I know that many people who believe in God or religious people, they're not really very humble. As a matter of fact, sometimes religion can make us very arrogant, and feel superior. So, but I think it helps. I think it helps in this area, Bob. I think it helps in the area of feeling humility versus practicing humility. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about the practice of humility. I don't always feel humble. Now, if you were in the presence of God, or if you were in the presence of a major leader, you might feel humble, right? That's one thing. And, that's great. But from a leadership point of view, I don't think you have to believe in God to practice humility. I don't think you have to be, have a high IQ or a low IQ. I think it's something you can do. I think it's a practice.
I love when you said about religious people who you think would be humble, but they aren't. It kind of reminds me of the, I'm much more humble than thou art. You think you're humble, man? I am humble. Right?
I'm not going to say that to you because I know you got some boxing in your background. I'm afraid you'll box my ears.
That's funny. Yeah, you can't say you're humble and be humble, I guess. So, let's see. Oh, Lavelle Campbell has joined. Hello. And Alejandra Benitez has joined. Hello, Alejandra. Jeff West says, when you believe you are blessed beyond measure, it's easier to have humility. And I think, again, that's where taking pleasure rather than pride comes in. Because when we do that, when we take pleasure in something, we know it's not just us, that there's other aspects.
Yes. Yeah. You know how it is, Bob. You can go to Dunkin' Donut in the morning and you're not counting your pennies. You don't have to worry about paying for that coffee. It feels, and you know what? I pinch myself, man. We go out to dinner or we go do something and we're not counting. It's a blessing, and be thankful for that. And it's easier to be humble there for sure. That's a great observation.
Yeah. I think, I've often said gratitude is the trait that allows happiness to exist, because if we're not grateful for what we have, it doesn't matter what we have.
Wow.
It doesn't matter what we have. But yeah, like Jeff said, like you said, it's easy to be humble when you realize, wow, there but for the grace of God, or therefore, but for what have you, would be me. Alejandra says humility has to do with recognizing you can fail. Very, very true, Alejandra. That's a great point. So the tendency to think too highly of ourselves, and again, you're speaking a lot of times from a leadership viewpoint in terms of someone who is a leader, you could say has that position of leadership, has what have, and so it's always so important to be careful especially when in that position, because there's a lot of responsibility. So the tendency to think too highly of ourselves takes many forms. So what are some of those forms that manifest themselves when we think too highly of ourselves, when we lose that humility?
Well, first of all, Bob, let me say this. If you read that post or these other, a lot of the posts that I write, you get a glimpse into my own psyche, if you will, so I'm easily puffed up. I easily think I'm more important than I really am. It's just, I don't know if I can thank my parents for that or if everybody's that way. I'm not even worried about everybody. I just know that there is a real strong tendency in myself. And so I'm writing about this idea of, what does it look like from really a personal point of view. Now, some of the things I wrote in the post, I wouldn't actually do myself, but I think like showing up to be served rather than to serve might be a symptom of, we've gone a little over the top there. I think sometimes you get your nose out of joint if somebody doesn't show you the kind of respect you think you deserve.
Dan, I want to go. Yeah, that was great. I want to go back to the thing you said just before that. That was absolutely key. That is showing. And please say that again. Showing up as to be served rather than to serve.
Right.
Ooh, that is powerful. By the way, Shannon did post the post that we're referring to, servant leadership distilled and simplified. So I would ask everyone to read that after this. But that is so key. That's the person who walks into the room. Are they there to serve or are they there to be served? And what a difference it makes to the whole culture. Because if you have a culture of that those positionally at the top are there to be served, that just manifests itself. That's like that fish that stinks from the head down. But when you're there to serve, wow, what a difference.
Yes. That's why I like to think, again, I can think of it as a practice. So you might walk into a venue. I might walk into a venue and the person who's supposed to handle me and show me where to go isn't there. And I don't know where to go. And so I get my nose out of joint, right? Like, how come they're not taking care of me? Or I might feel that, but I can say I'm showing up to serve. And so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to go do my best. I'm going to bring what I have to offer instead of like, they didn't treat me like I was supposed to be treated. No, show up to serve.
Yeah. So let's look. Here's a few of the forms of this. You wrote, hubris enjoys finding fault. It's a veiled attempt to assert our own worth or superiority. If we can take someone down a notch, our status goes up. So there's envy, coveting, gossip, certainly when there's a lack of humility. When hubris comes in, gossip goes up. Criticism, exposing someone's need for status. So I guess, what does that look like? What does that look like in an organization?
The dark side or the good side?
Let's go both, because you always in your articles you always do both the dark side and the good side. Which
as you were talking, I was thinking one of the dark expressions of an organization that has an abundance of pride in it is everybody has to be self-protective. No one can really put themselves out there because we're very concerned about saving face and making ourselves look good. And I can never be wrong. I think that's part of the pride thing too. I can never make a mistake. I'm always right. Now I got to defend myself. So I could see, kind of choking an organization to some degree.
I want to take a moment, by the way, just to remind people where they can connect with you. First, the Leadership Freak blog, which I think that comes out every day, doesn't it? I don't know how you do that.
Comes out pretty much every day.
Yeah, and it's usually 300 words, but on, I think, Sundays.
On the weekends, I can let myself go sometimes.
Yeah. And at Leadership Freak on Twitter, and on Facebook, you have the Leadership Coffee Shop. That's facebook.com/leadership freak. And again, Shannon, as always, has been putting those in the discussion areas. So I want to ask you, just let's go back in time to a little bit. Little Danny Rockwell is in Maine, a country boy on the farm. What was your progression from that to leader? Because I know about this, so I'm asking you because I've read it from you. Tell us about that.
I'll tell you, the first thing that comes to mind is a conversation I had with Jay Elliott, who was a VP at Apple. And I said, what do people see in you that makes you a leader? And he says, well, it doesn't hurt that I'm taller than others. And it's very deep, right? So I didn't go. My birthday was at that mark where I went to first grade when I was 7 instead of 6. And as a boy, that's very good, I think, because we mature slower than the girls. And I was tall, and I was decent at sports. And so I got to be the captain of the team and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure where you wanted to take that, Bob, but for me, being tall helped. I'll take Jay. That's pretty deep, isn't it?
That is very deep.
Sorry, all the short folks.
And those that don't have gray hair, silver hair, and a
there you go.
Beard and mustache. So, you also do, by the way, coaching for coaches. And I remember that when I did meet you, and that was at Tracy Jones's tremendous leadership place that we were doing there was a seminar, and afterwards you were coaching a couple of people in the back, and
yes, I remember.
I don't even know if you remember that, but
I do remember those conversations. It wasn't official, but we were just having some conversations.
Yeah, you were counseling them. You weren't even you were counseling them.
You were awesome, by the way. You were awesome in that.
Thank you. But I remember watching them, their attention was just rapt on you, and rapt, R-A-P-T. And I was watching that, and I really saw what you were delivering to them and how it just came so much from your heart. What do you find when you coach coaches? What do you find is their biggest challenge that they come to you with? And do they know it's a challenge, or is it something you need to help them discover?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Bob. And by the way, I've thought about that encounter in Harrisburg, and I sort of cringe. I wish I would have been quieter and listened more. And
what do you mean?
I don't know.
You were a fantastic audience member. It was afterwards that you were counseling them, and that's because I told everybody who you were. And they weren't going to let that chance pass up.
Yeah. Okay. So what is it that the coaches struggle with? It's almost always the same thing, and that's the inner fixer. We want to fix people. So coaching is not fixing. Coaching is giving people some space to find their own solutions and develop their own path forward. Not my path, their path. That's what gives people power. So almost always, as you train coaches, they have to grapple with, I think I know the answer to this person's situation. I think I know the path forward for them. And you have to just keep strangling yourself and saying, no, that, I'm here to help you find the answer. And my skill is not in giving answers. My skill is in asking questions and creating space for you. So the inner fixer, the fixer in us almost always gets in the way of the coach.
And, maybe this is also where humility comes in too, because when someone asks a question, so, well, what do I do about this or this or that happened? There's a temptation, I think, for most of us to just answer the question, like you said, provide the answer, provide the solution. But there's a couple things inherently counterproductive about that. One is it's not as powerful when we provide the answer as when they do. But something even more than that, it's that we don't necessarily know enough about the situation, the background, the context, the other party involved, and everything up to that point to be able to provide an answer based on knowledge, because we're seeing it through our own individual belief system, through our experiences. So do a lot of us have maybe that inclination to fill in the blanks without even knowing we're doing that?
Oh man, it's fill in the blanks. And you made me think of two. I want to go to that, but just a quick response here is so often the inability to sit with silence is a struggle for coaches. Giving people, especially introverts, giving people a space to just reflect and think instead of, there's a moment of silence and I got to jump in. But, I was thinking about it's so cool that you bring in humility to this. And let's face it, if somebody asks your advice, that can be a sort of a self-puffing sort of experience. They're admiring you, they're respecting you. And so now if we're not careful, we're like, oh, I'm awesome. And I know what people should do. And, that's again, where the practice of humility says, oh, I feel that coming on.
Right.
And guess what? It's time to chill and maybe ask a question, learn more, turn the conversation toward the person, not all about you. So I think you're exactly right. When somebody asks for advice or suggestions, it's great to just ask a few questions and then say, well, what do you think? And yes. By the way, go ahead.
No, yeah, that was it. That was wonderful to ask. What do you think?
What do you think? It's so funny because the people who know me well actually know this, and they'll say, well, I'm not going to ask Dan what he thinks, because he's just going to say, well, what do you think?
Yeah, I love that. And that's something you've taught yourself to do. And that's a discipline in and of itself. Dan, so I read a tweet this morning where the tweeter, that never sounds right.
That doesn't sound right, does it?
He wrote something I thought was quite profound. His name is Derek Lido.
I know Derek Lido.
Yeah, he's wonderful. He's the author of Building on Bedrock. On Twitter, he is at Derek Lido, spelled DerekLidow. Or if I know Shannon, it's already up there probably. But he tweeted the following: being a CEO doesn't require being in the limelight at all. There are millions of examples of successful CEOs that you've never heard of and who actively avoid the limelight. And I thought afterwards, I think of many of the CEOs I know and have been privileged to speak for at their conferences, who I would definitely call them humble. I would say they have humility in the positive way that we spoke of. I would say this: they put their team members first. They seem to be the one that want others in the spotlight. Now, as Jim Collins said in his book, the great book, Good to Great, when he talked about the difference between level 4 leaders and level 5 leaders, both have great talent. But the level 4 leaders tend to make it about them, where the level 5 leaders make it about everyone else. Would you say that's characteristic of leadership humility?
Yeah, that's really where I'm at, Bob. And I think, again, it can be practiced. It might be that we inside say, boy, I would love to be in the limelight. And that really is just a trigger to say, give the limelight to someone else. Say, well, I would love to be the center of attention. And, I can be that way. And so when I feel it, I'm saying, okay, I've committed myself to practice humility. So how do I make someone else the center?
Let's see. Andrew Parker writes, I think humility is teachableness. Oh, I like that. The willingness to learn. One can have a lot of humility and confidence, but confidence without humility tends to become arrogance. Oh, I would totally agree with that. Let's see. Mike Benton, I think by showing appreciation for the little things in life is a sign of humility and understanding your life can change in a second. Mike is a very, very successful realtor. He's also one of our certified Go-Giver speakers. And Mike was homeless, living out of his car for a while, and then he lost everything. And then he now is, again, very, very successful. He's one of the most humble people I know. I wonder if I'm off. Are we still on? Because I'm not sure if we.
I see that little live thing on my.
Okay, then I guess we are. I think I lost connection actually for a moment.
Live on Facebook.
Okay, hang on one second because now I need to. I can't.
Then I guess we are. I think I lost connection actually for a moment. Live on Facebook.
Okay, hang on one second. Hold on a second, everyone. I apologize. I am going to need to now. We're echoing, so I'm going to have to shut this off. Okay, got it back. Okay, I kind of went off. Shannon says still on, all good. Okay, yep, Kathy, I just muted Facebook. It came up after I was temporarily off. Anyway, so yeah, I was telling you about Mike Benton. Here's a guy who understands humility. He's lived through being on the top, going way down, coming back up, and realizing, hey, you never know what's going to happen.
Yes.
So,
yeah, there's that. I think the awareness of frailty helps.
Yeah.
Knowing that things can change very quickly, and many of your audience have encountered sickness or physical frailties or accidents or financial loss, and those frailties can really help us move in that direction for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dan, how do people get in touch with you for your coaching services?
You can send an email to dan@leadershipfreak.com. The other day I was on the phone, somebody was asking me, what's your email address? And I said, Dan@leadershipfreak, and they couldn't hear it right, or they couldn't believe that that's what it was. And my wife was we have a large family room, and the kitchen's there. And my wife was in the same room. And I said, yeah, a freak. And the person said geek and, chic. And I'm saying, no, freak, leadership freak. She started laughing. She had to actually leave the house. She went out on the deck. I watched her losing it out on the deck. So anyway, it's leadershipfreak.com.
Got it. That will keep you humble. Dan Rockwell is really one of the most read leadership bloggers on the planet, writing under the name Leadership Freak. Again, his blog has been recognized as the #1 most socially shared leadership blog. You can connect with him. Let's see, leadershipfreak.blog is the blog. I subscribe to that. I read it every day. I think it's so very important to be tuned in, tapped into leadership, continually improving ourselves in that area. And he's a great resource. On Twitter, you can connect with Dan @leadershipfreak. He's like me. He keeps things very simple. I'm Burg.com. Everything's just Bob Burg or Burg.com. Right. And let's see. Oh, and on Facebook, the gathering place known as the Leadership Coffee Shop, facebook.com/Leadership Freak. Everything is in the window. Shannon has done her always awesome job of posting everything. Let's see. Now I do my regular house cleaning things where I say, if you haven't read John David Man's newest book, The Go-Giver Influencer, make sure to pick that up, thegogiver.com. If you are interested in attending Kathy Tajanel's and my next Go-Giver Entrepreneurs Academy, make sure to check out GoGiverEntrepreneursAcademy.com. And there's a whole lot of stuff there. Oh, make sure you join our Go-Giver Influencers group on Facebook, and Shannon will be putting her usual stuff in there so you can click on whatever you'd like. Hey, Dan, thank you. So I always love talking with you. You just share so much wonderful wisdom, and thank you for being you.
Bob, it's always a pleasure. Love seeing you. Love what you're doing. I follow you as well, and your Twitter and the whole thing. So thank you so much for the opportunity of serving you and part of your audience. Thank you.
My pleasure. And thank you, everyone. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, make it a great day and a fantastic week.